Hi guys! Today is Dairy Day. We are gonna focus on milk and milk products made from traditional dairy cows. I know there's other animals we could use for dairy products nowadays, but we're gonna focus on, this is the main one that we all know and love. So we're gonna focus on milk and then also products made from milk, mostly cheese. All right, activity 813, the Milky Way is what we're doing today with this lab. It says the USDA recommends 3 servings of milk products per day for most teenagers. Milk is an important source of essential nutrients, including protein and calcium. Typically, when you hear the term milk, it is referring to cow's milk for human consumption. Determining the quality of milk and defects in fluid milk is a skill useful in production, processing, and consumption. The ability to identify the defect often leads to determining the cause of it, which is necessary for correcting the problem because we don't want bad stuff in our milk. When sampling milk, you must rely heavily on your taste and odor sensations. The 4 primary tastes are sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. There are also 4 fundamental odor sensations: fragrant or sweet, sour acid, burnt, or caprylic, which is goats. Because flavor is a combination of the 2, you may find flavors based on the taste, the odor, or a combination. Your taste buds sense various tastes at different sites along the side, tip, and base of your tongue. Thus, you should roll food samples through your mouth to engage all taste buds. Your ability to detect odors comes from the upper portion of your nasal cavity. To maximize your ability to smell the sample, you should breathe in slowly and deeply, both before and after you put the sample into your mouth. Do you think you can find a defect in milk samples or determine the kind of cheese you are eating? Normally, in class, you would be sampling milk and cheese, but obviously we can't do that virtually. So I have filmed this video for you. We're gonna go through 3 milk samples and 3 cheese samples and see if you can complete this activity. So read the directions, follow along with me. You are responsible for filling out this worksheet and then the conclusion questions. And don't forget, attached to here, just like when we did the egg lab, there is a dairy product grading guide. You're gonna use this to fill out this chart, so you need both of these open as we get along. All right, with that, let's get into the lab, and then I'll be back for conclusion. All right, part 1 today is all about milk, and we're really looking at the quality of milk. So I want you to think about before milk gets to the grocery store, okay? We milked the cows, the truck came and picked up the milk from the farm, and we took it to a processing plant. This is Lucerne milk today, but it could be Dairy Gold, Organic Valley, whatever. So a dairy processing facility that's going to pasteurize the milk and then obviously grade it for quality, separate it from whole, 2%, 1% skim, etc. At that facility, they have to do quality control because just because it's healthy and it's passed all of the tests to be acceptable from the farm does not mean that the product today from this particular farm compared to 2 weeks ago from a different farm is better quality, and there could be some issues. So at the processing facility, they're going to be running some quality tests. And what we're looking for are, first off flavors. Milk can be deceptive. Milk looks like milk, white, pure. But how it tastes can vary based on what the animal's eating. The diet of the animal is what's going into creating the milk. And so if it gets into a different feed, if the feed is bad, if the animal already has a particular digestive problem and it's not treated, it can lead to different things. So what you have available to you in the Dairy Products Guide is some descriptions of off flavors in milk. We've got bitter, cooked, feed or weedy, flat, foreign, fruity, fermented, garlic, onion, acid, malty, metallic, and it continues on to page 2. So normally we would be taste testing these in class and you would be using these descriptions to kind of figure out as you're tasting, number 1, is there a defect? Because maybe there's not, there could be a perfectly fine and healthy milk. So that would be no defect. Or if there is a defect, identifying which one it is, but then also identifying how bad that defect is. So we have a quality rating. So from excellent to good, fair, poor, and then unacceptable. It's like so bad, I would not wish it on anybody. So obviously I bought this milk from the grocery store, which means it's already passed all its inspections and there's nothing wrong with it. So in order to do this lab, I had to doctor it a little bit and then to film it so that it's easy for you guys to see visually is a whole nother thing. So this lab is gonna be a little bit different than it would be in person, but I want you to try to try to think that you are the person in the dairy processing facility that's actually putting milk in these bottles that would be testing it. Because if any of these defects were true, that batch would get thrown out. It's not ever gonna make it to this. Just like the bad eggs would never make it into the egg carton. So you are going to grade milk today. So when you're looking at your worksheet, as I do this lab, we're on this part, table 2. So we're gonna do a quality rating. Excellent is no defect at all. It's a perfectly good milk. And I'm gonna show you what this looks like straight out of the bottle so you can see what perfect milk looks like for this sample. And then if it is bad, what is the defect, like identifying it, and then what that means. So kind of adding a description there. And you're gonna be using this guide to help you do that, all right? So let's get started. We've got 3 milk samples to do, and I'm gonna try to show you what they look like and describe what they smell or possibly taste like for you, okay? Let's get rolling. First, I'm gonna show you what perfectly good milk looks like out of the bottle so you've got something to compare it to. So this is not a sample, you don't need to write this down, but this is what you're gonna be comparing all the other samples to. So this is whole milk from the Safeway brand Lucerne. Be looking at color, texture, how thick this is. This is whole milk, not 2%. And then I'll describe the flavor for you here in just a second. That is our comparison sample. This is what the good, no defect should look like. Smells delicious. It's creamy. Tastes like regular old milk. It's got a good like creamy texture to it. All right, so here is sample 1. I'm gonna show it to you in the cup and then I'm gonna pour it so you can kind of compare visually, and then I'll describe the flavor. This is milk sample 1. Smell is very similar. I can't tell a smell difference. Texture is still creamy. I am not tasting any difference from our comparison sample. Can you tell a difference visually? That is sample number 1. Okay, here's sample number 2. Already visually, I can tell a difference. I'll do the pour test in just a second, but you should visually be able to see pretty big difference in this milk. Here comes the pour. Just visually look at that. Very, very different. It's not really hanging on to the edge of the container. Tells me it's not very creamy. It smells blah, smells bland, like no flavor. It doesn't smell like milk anymore. It doesn't smell bad, it just doesn't smell like milk. Let me taste it. Yeah, it's milk, it's not bad, it's just not creamy, not as flavorful. Just tastes like a blah batch, very blah. Lost a lot of quality compared to the original. All right, that is sample number 2. Okay, this is sample number 3. It looks a little bit more like number 1 in the original. It hangs out on the edges, but it is different. It's not hanging out as much. It's kind of lost some thickness and some creaminess, although it feels like it's not all one thing. This has a really bad smell. Smells burnt. Like warm, burnt milk. Very nutty in smell and flavor. Very nutty. All right, here comes the pour test. But like, it looks healthy, it just smells funny and just doesn't, it is not appealing. I wish you could smell it. It just, it smells burnt. And because of that, the taste, it doesn't taste necessarily burnt, but it messes with the flavor. It definitely is not the same as the original. All right, that's number 3. All right, part 2 is all about cheese. And so we're gonna do some cheese tasting and identification. So I'm gonna do my best to film the look of the cheese, show you the firmness or the texture, the color, and then I will be tasting and trying to describe as best you can. So what you're looking for on your worksheet is we're down here now in table 3. You need to describe in color, texture, flavor, and then now knowing what I'm describing it, what would you say it tastes like? Try to compare it to something out there in the real world, something else that you frequently eat. And then the last column is the variety. You're actually trying to identify what cheese it is, and this is where identification of cheeses comes from. So I would have this open as you watch the video, because these are the varieties of cheeses it could be. There's color descriptions. There's more than one yellow cheese. There's more than one white cheese. So just because you're seeing it and you're familiar with something, there may be a different kind out there. So you're looking for that. And then in the description, I'll be mentioning some of these things, or you'll be visually seeing them. So use this to help you. Flavor-wise, pretty smooth, not too flavorful, kind of nutty. Very soft, but a firm cheese. Very smooth, not dry or flaky at all. This cheese is soft, like number 1, but more mild in flavor, almost unflavorful, very, very mild. It's still smooth, but firm. It's not dry and flaky. This cheese is also smooth and firm like the other two, has that glossy sheen, but this is probably the creamiest cheese of all three. It's almost like a little plasticky when you look at it, and when you first bite into it, it's got like a filmy outer layer, if you will. It's very, very mellow in flavor. All right, I hope that was fun. If you have dairy products at home, I would love to encourage you to try them out and see if you can identify, now that you have a better understanding of flavor descriptions, what things are like. All right, conclusion questions. Number one, how might handling and processing milk influence the defects in milk? So there are many stages from the cow producing the milk inside of its body to you getting it in the container. So are there places in that supply chain where things could go wrong and change the flavor of the milk? So what do you think could happen there? Number two, what off flavors would you be more likely to find in retail milk? So if you were to purchase milk from the grocery store and it were to actually have a defect, of the ones from the list, what do you think would be like the most common you would actually find from a grocery store sample? It's not very often that you'll get any defect, because that's the whole point of looking for defects at the processor. But if something were to slip, what do you think the most common one could be? All right. And then lastly, just thinking about it as a consumer, how do you think sensory evaluation experiences, the senses, the taste and the odor today, will influence you as a consumer? Now that you've been through this, hopefully you can maybe try it out at home on something else, but how does your senses impact you as a consumer? Do you like certain foods based on their flavor and their smell? Do you avoid certain ones? Do they change as you cook them or prepare them in certain ways? And that maybe changes, you like one thing one way but not the other. So just be thinking about how it influences you as a consumer. All right, that's it for Dairy Day. Check the assignment post for all the details and instructions so you get a perfect score, and I'll see you guys later.